everybody. I hope everyone's having a great week and off to a great start for 2024. I, personally, am very optimistic about what the coming year is going to bring us all. I'd like to welcome back Shayan of the great band Trivax, as well as the host of Iblis Manifestation, a fellow horseman. Of course, we talk about the brand new Trivax album, Eloah Burns Out, but we also veer off into a variety of other topics, which was my hope that we would do. And this conversation will not disappoint any of you. Before we get going, I want to shout out the other horsemen. Kicking the week off, we have Horror Wolf 666, brought to you by Brandon Legion. Tuesday, we have Into the Necrosphere, brought to you by Jackie Smith. Of course, Wednesday, Everything Went Black comes at you. I return on Thursday, Necro Thursday, with Mike Scandato and Jeff Kashid for Necromaniacs podcast. Friday, Spitball Media comes at you. Saturday is a day off. But Sunday, Carl Hikara deploys Soul Knox, a podcast delving into the darkness of the universe, all things macabre and esoteric. Carl and I have been continuing our collaborative Darkness Weaves, in which we explore the work of Carl Edward Wagner. And as I mentioned earlier, Cheyenne brings us Iblis Manifestations, the newest member of the Horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. If you enjoy this, please share. Please share the other Horsemen podcasts as well. We're trying to build up a conglomerate of free thinkers to battle mediocrity. Also, if you want to support this podcast, you can join our Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can support the show. For $5 a month, you can get all the bonus material as well as early access to the content. And now, with no further ado, here we go. Cheyenne, it's great to have you back on the show. Welcome back. And it's been 2023 has been quite a year for you, it seems.
Thank you, man. First off, it's fucking great to be back here. Finally, I know last time I was on was from the Into the Void era, was when we had just released that one. So yeah, really happy to be back here. And yeah, man, last year was a fucking whirlwind from start to finish. So yeah, proud of the way the whole thing went, I think. So yeah, and obviously very happy with where things are with Trivax on the other side of it too. So yeah, can't complain, man. It's been good.
You know, congratulations on the new record. Eloah Burns Out is figuring very high in my end of the year for 2023 top albums. And Jackie and I usually do an episode together. And without giving too much away, because this is ahead of that episode, I think it's timely that you and I spoke before that episode airs. So congratulations.
Thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, this record, it's a funny one. I mean, for us, the biggest victory was just the fact that we got it out after so many delays, so many different issues and things, not in the creative side of things, but more in the publishing side that, we never would have thought it would have taken us 4 years from when we actually recorded the album until we released it. But here we are, man. It happened, and it almost feels like, despite the delay, that it was the right thing. Like I very much I have this interesting relationship with the world and life and the way events transpire, and I'm a big believer of reason and karma. And looking back at it, I think this album is the way it turned out is, I think it was the right thing. Perhaps we needed to build the band further within those 4 years to really match the power of the record, both live and as far as our own capabilities, but also just in terms of the depth of the band in general, and obviously a lot happened in those 4 years. So yeah, I'm just very proud to finally get it out, and to have the response that we have had is quite fucking mind-blowing, to be honest. And it's been really overwhelming seeing how many top albums of the year it's actually made it to, obviously. And again, I really appreciate you making that inclusion as well. But it's not why we record and release albums, but it's pretty fucking cool to see it, once it's actually out there.
I mean, none of us do this for that, you know, reason, but it's always nice to get acknowledgement, you know, and like for
Sure.
example, you know, I always like when people that I respect, you know, enjoy my work and you know, and I you know, just want to show my appreciation that, you know, the new record is quite a bit of a stretch from the last records. Not saying the last older material was any lesser, but I just want to underscore what I view as a huge progression in the songwriting, you know, even the passion of this of the material.
Mhm.
Um, it's just it seems like the material has like a deeper meaning to you, and or maybe it's a clearer expression of some of the passions that you have or some of the ideas that are swimming around in your head. But yeah, it really resonated with me. And aside from the feeling of it, like the actual riffs, I have to give you props on the intros to your songs because I'm big on intros. and
Sure. I know that.
yeah, and I love like a good solid intro, and there's tons of really solid intros on this record. So, you know, hell, you know, Serpent's Gaze, the intro on that gets me ready to do damage. You know what I mean?
Fuck yeah, man. That's what I love to hear. Thank you so much. You know what the expression is, game knows game, right?
Wow.
And yeah, man. No, I really appreciate hearing that. I think it's yeah, if we want to make the comparison between the first and the second album, I mean, the first album's just fucking weird. You know, it's so cryptic. That's the word that I find I keep coming back to in recent interviews is that it's a very cryptic album. It just doesn't make sense. And, you know, on one hand, it's super underground and super like weird, dissonant chords here and there. And then some other songs on there are just like borderline pop. And it's one of them things. It was gonna be either the case that everyone was gonna absolutely love that album, or that everyone was gonna hate it. And obviously, with great thanks to my PR genius of 2016, no one even heard it. So you know that was obviously people are going back and listening to it now, going, "Holy shit, what the fuck is this?" But yeah, you know, it is what it is. I think Sin, our first album, is a piece of art. You know, that's really the best I can describe it. But I guess the same could be said about Eloah Burns Out. I definitely could be the same, but the difference is that whatever the intent behind Eloah Burns Out was, it was something that we didn't beat around the bush with it. We just went straight to the fucking point. We said, yes, we can do this. Yes, we can do this. Yes, we can do that. You know, and it was not you know, I think for your first album, people kind of judge you in a funny way where it's like, you know, they assess your capabilities. And then with this one, it was kind of like, well, hang on a minute, this we can actually do all of these things. We were just trying to be weird. But anyway, it's a weird fucking mental wrestle that perhaps I've been through. Some of it is perhaps just unnecessary overthinking, but all I can say is Eloah Burns Out. I couldn't be any more proud of it. I think that every small aspect of it, whether it was recording, whether it was production, whether it was songwriting, whether it was just rehearsing the songs, whether it was doing the press, whether it was doing music videos, the artwork, whatever, we went 110% on every single one of those aspects. Not to mention also the photography session that we did for it, which was with Esther Sagara at this chapel in London. You know, that was a fucking massive project just for the photo shoot. And obviously the video that I guess everyone's seen now for Azrael. The whole thing, we just went all in on it, and I gotta say, it's nice to see how it paid off. But the real victory was just beholding the whole thing and feeling nothing but pride and satisfaction. That's for sure.
Well, just a couple of things with regards to what you were saying. So the record was recorded 4 years ago, or the material was composed 4 years ago?
The record was recorded 4 years ago. The
Or
material was finished in 2018. That's right.
oh wow, damn.
Yeah.
Okay, that I mean that sounds so. For 4 years, this material has been like, you know, archived, waiting to be unleashed. And but it
Yep.
seems
So
so fresh and brand new. That's the thing, man. It's like, I mean, you know, obviously I haven't heard any of this stuff until, you know, last year, but the oh, that's like just that alone in and of itself. requires like such, in my opinion, an incredible amount of resolve to stick to it. You know, I mean, I know that if I'd written stuff and recorded it and 4 years had gone by, um, I don't know what kind of mindset I would have really. I mean, just the determination to continue with that is astounding. And you know that's a detail that just kind of can go right by a lot of people. You know, maybe
Yeah.
people who aren't necessarily engaged in a creative pursuit. You think about 4 years of your life, you create this thing, and it just lays dormant. And what kind of mental toll it takes on you. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
Man, I really appreciate you taking notice. And before I go into it, I also have to give you credit and thank you on the record for the help that you gave the band in searching for a label. That none of that's forgotten. So I do very much appreciate that. And yeah, as far as the 4 year wait, yeah, like I kept joking with everyone saying Trivax has got blue balls because we've been holding on to the semen of Eloah Burns Out for fucking so long, you know. But actually, yeah. So let me sort of bring that back. Yeah. So we started recording in May 2019, finished recording by August of the same year, and the album was mixed and mastered by November 2019. So we've had to sit on it ever since then. So the Into the Void that you all heard, I guess I get to kind of reveal the secrets now. That's from the same recording session. But what I decided to do in my crazy, insane mind, uh, I decided that Eloah Burns Out was too good of an album to come straight after Sin. So we should try and bridge the gap a little bit. So what I decided to do was to do a shittier, more underground mix of Into the Void and release that as a project instead, which actually seemed to bridge the gap quite well, I would say. I mean, conceptually, first of all, it kind of lubed everyone's brains up a little bit, considering the difference between the two records, but also then that actually became its own like pillar that now stands in our back catalog and era as a band. Still really proud of that release, the way it came out, but yeah, it was sort of like we just took one of the songs and then made a whole EP out of it. And yeah, it's a listen. It's been a wild journey. I mean, the songwriting of Eloah Burns Out coincided with a lot of extreme personal shifts in all of our lives. For me, actually, the beginning of Eloah Burns Out's songwriting coincided with me realizing I had to make some improvements in my life. So what perhaps might not be as noticeable to other people, at least for people who followed my personal story and know about my transformation with the physical side of things and the weight loss and the whole mental health thing that I've been through, which I've been very vocal about for anyone who's obviously not seen or heard before. Those songs, when I look back at them, they map out my own progress because each one of them was written during a period of struggle that I was trying to better myself somehow and figure out my shit along the way. But if I may also give a little bit of positive news here, which is probably the elephant in the room that everyone's probably thinking. If everyone does the maths together and says, okay, if the last material that was written on Eloah Burns Out was done in 2018, which by the way was for the actual last song, Dara Kharadonia, then that means that they must have written more songs since then, right? So there
Sure.
is that to also ponder about somewhere in the back of people's minds.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking too. Because I mean, people. I mean, anyone out there who doesn't play in a band or create, it's not like, okay, great, we made a record, then we're not going to do anything again until it's time to make another record. There's probably
Yeah.
just like a constant. I mean, I imagine like every day there's some idea like kicking around your head for some song, like you're probably humming some tune or imagining other riffs or fragments of lyrics. That's like a constant thing that probably runs through your head, I imagine. So those things have probably come into fruition at some point in 4 years. So I imagine there's at least another album that's like at least conceptually existing. You know what I mean?
You would hope so, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what can I say, man? It's you know, all I can say to people is to Just enjoy the progression on Eloah Burns Out, but don't expect that the progression's ending there. That's all I'll say.
So, so Eloah versus Elohim. Like I, one's like Hebrew and one's like more of a Middle Eastern word for God. Did I get that right?
Well, actually, the whole word is one that's quite common around the languages over there anyway, but Eloah is actually just the singular for Elohim. Because Elohim is actually a collective, from my understanding. So Eloah is referring to a singular deity. Eloah is also very similar to Elohe, which is in Farsi, which is also, well, it's basically Allah. Okay. So what we're referring to in this context is one singular omnipotent deity, which is God, and it's about the burning out of this God. You know, the way I like to look at it, if you want to really get into the concept of what the album means, what this is referring to is let's say you've got one ultimate God, and this is the burning out of that God. The way I observe God is as some kind of a life form that's perhaps beyond our understanding. But then we also know that all life forms are vulnerable in this universe. And, the universe, as we know, is infinite. However, at the same time, it is always vulnerable and destructive also. So just because it's infinite doesn't mean that it's invincible. And I applied the same context to the understanding of God as well. So what I wanted to envision was the final moment, not just for one person, but for everything. I wanted to envision the very last moment with my small little human brain as best as I could. But that's what really depicts. And the last song, Dar Akhar Dunya, which means at the end of the world, the Farsi song, that one is basically depicting the burning out of the sun in our solar system, which we all know is going to happen someday, unless we get swallowed by a black hole, which would be, conceptually still aligned with that, I guess. But the thing of that is that it's the it's the ending of all life as we know it, and it's not life just humanity, it's not life just insects and bugs and animals, but it's the consciousness of the planets and the stars all imploding at one. So that's really where that title comes from.
It's definitely a heavy topic, and it makes me think a little bit about some of the ideas of like being versus unbeing.
Mm.
Where the idea of the void, where like life, is another facet of not existing, and life is suffering, and the two things sort of are diametric to each other. Um, there's a book I just read about that, and it talks a lot about like not existing and existing, and the two. It's basically, I know it sounds like a silly idea, but it's how the cyclical nature, like you talk about the black hole enveloping reality and consciousness and then becoming nothing, and then out of that void it's another cycle of life that would most likely, that material would end up reassembling in some other form into like a whole other era. And that kind of ties in with like the different ideas of the ages and different eras and sort of that that sort of idea.
So I love this topic, by the way. I can, you've started me off now, but the one really interesting thing that happened in my mind around actually exactly 10 years ago now is when I first did acid. One interesting thing that kept coming to me, and a general realization that I did through doing different sketches and trying to observe life just through the different sketches, like it was unlocking all these boxes of understanding in my mind. The thing that I realized, and the one thing that we all have to remember, is that energy is never created or destroyed. It only changes format. Now, what is life and consciousness? So to me, the way I look at that is that life in itself, like there's always energy everywhere. energy is all around us. Imagine you have a sea, right? There's energy in that. But then to me, what defines life is when somehow a magnetic field or some kind of a container comes and grabs hold of some of that energy. So where you have endless chaos, chaos doesn't mean lack of substance or lack of material or lack of energy, but rather a lack of a presence that holds all of that together. So to me, the order, which is life, comes and gives a home to that energy. So look at it like this: it's like you've got a sea, and that sea is chaos. It's energy, but it's chaos. There's no home to it. Yet you come and grab a bowl out of that sea and you hold it out like a little fish tank, and then that's life because that's containing that thing. So to me, the way I also observe consciousness as a whole and how we are as human beings and the life on this planet is like that. There is this sea of chaos, and every single one of us are these like little bubbles of magnetic field that rose out of that sea. They come from the same place, but then they have their own gravitational force. Yes, we come from the same place, but then we are all different. But that it's sort of like it's like God trying to observe itself. But then the thing you got to look at is the overall sea, the sea that we all come from. And that's my observation of consciousness as a whole, and really what it means to have a mind. So when you're saying going into nothingness, well, what is going into nothingness? Because the energy, that's not going to just disappear out of nowhere. That has to change format. So the way I identify death is the breakdown of that order that holds that energy together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's the way I look at chaos in like almost like a thermodynamic sort of way where, chaos equals more of like entropy. It's not like, all these guys with the spiky hair, chaos, like going around in circles and, punk rock. That's not how I look at chaos. Chaos is entropy and lack of organization. And, most of our reality is empty space, and these particles organize themselves to make these bodies and masses that are around us, and that once again, you mentioned like some sort of magnetic field or some field that binds all these particles together to form me, you, this table, my cat, like all this stuff, guitars, amps, that stuff. But that all eventually goes into entropy and randomness, lack of organization, aka chaos, and then recycled into other bodies and masses and universes and cars and credit cards and cats and all this other stuff.
Absolutely. So the way I like to look at it when talking about that same entropy is one thing that we all seem to forget just because we're always surrounded by life is that in existence as a whole, life is a minority. And I'm not talking about life as in the life that we know it, like I said, the humans and the animals and the insects and the bacteria and the microbiome. No, 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 no. I'm talking about anything that's pulsating and existing in the universe, such as the stars, the cosmos, the all the little planets and the moons and all the asteroids. To me, that is life. And the thing that you got to remember is that that's still a minority.
Yeah, no,
And
absolutely.
that's a very cold and dark realization about what we live in. But also, what we can take away from that is to actually appreciate the little bit of life that we have, the fact that we get to actually have our own consciousness to even observe this whole crazy thing. I mean, you could also think that we are a disease. Yeah, but at the same time, what a blessing it is to be a disease. You could totally change the perspective. You could say, I'm trapped in this consciousness, or you could say, holy fuck, I am God and I am in this smaller format and I'm observing everything. That perspective is one that can be it's quite intense when you actually realize what's happening. And but going back to the concept of the album as well, the Eloah that's burning out, that's the it's the cold knowledge that yes, despite all the, like let's just think about the sun itself, despite all of the powerful energy that would radiate from it throughout all this time, this ancient fucking gas star, and one day it will expand to the ultimate and take everything with it, only to go back to being a small little white dwarf in the middle of black nothingness. And that's the fate of everything. That's the thing I'm looking at here.
And one of the things, like, there's like sort of the glass empty and glass full, half full people who might look at that idea as nihilistic and depressing. But then there's also people out there that look at that as a very freeing sort of idea, like that knowledge, meaning that, like, in the infinite timeline, the time that we have in existence is like so insignificant that you should actually try to embrace life instead of just bum out and think about how everything is meaningless, because it gives you the power to assign your own meaning to your own life. And that idea that we just mentioned, I don't find that to be nihilistic at all. I find it to be very empowering.
Oh, fucking yeah, man. You're speaking my language now. I mean, you know, like the whole fucking thing. Yes, it's a matter of perspective. The fact of the matter is that it's the truth. It's the truth as we know it. So, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna observe it? Are you just gonna say, "Well, I guess nothing matters, so I'm not gonna do fucking anything anyway. I'm just gonna sit on my couch and smoke weed until I die"? Or you can say, "Holy shit, nothing matters. Let me go out there and conquer the entire planet, and let me conquer the world. Let's see how far we can push this. Let's see how far we can push with innovation or arts or love. Like, how much more can we push on that if it means that it's gonna end? It's like when you're playing a video game and you know that the game's gonna end anyway, but you've got this drive and urge to set the highest score on there anyway, right? Like,
Yeah, of course.
that it's finite, but you're still gonna have a crack at having the highest score on like an old arcade game or something. And that's life. That's the simple nature of our beings. There's no point fighting it and sitting around and thinking about it, because the fact of the matter is, doesn't matter which one of those approaches you want to take, whether you want to sit around or and say, well, I guess nothing matters, or if you want to go and actually give it your all, the end will come nevertheless. So how about you at least earn it, right? At least that's the way I try to think of it anyway, so that's what also makes you somewhat friction proof in life as well, so even if shit goes wrong, you're kind of like, well, all right, I'll give it my best, or I'll still see how I can go through this. Fuck it, it's finite anyway. And that's it's actually funny that this topic has come up today, because it's very relevant to the day that I've had.
Really? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've had kind of a day too. So,
yeah, I
yeah.
feel you, man.
Yeah. But, the week's coming to an end and you get a couple of days of respite, which is nice, but,
Exactly.
oh,
It
Happy
all
New Year,
comes to an end.
by the way, Happy New Year.
Thank you, man. Yes, yes. Happy New Year too. Sorry, I was too busy being grim there. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
2024 is gonna be very, very interesting. Hopefully excited to eventually see Tombs as well, man. Would be really cool to see that.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping too. I mean, 2023 for me personally was a little bit more of an introspective year. Like, I had to go inward a lot in the last year, and now 2024 is going to be more of a extroverted year, with the band performing more, recording, like, other projects getting off the ground, travel, like that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the new year as well. And yeah, we'd love to make it over there at some point again. It's been a while since we've been to Europe, so.
I know it has. Yeah. Did you say you are going to Inferno as well in Norway?
No, no, I'm not. I have no plans to go to that, but there was talk last year of me coming out to just to hang out, not the band to play. And but yeah, as far as like my visitations to Europe, at the end of this year, I'm going to be going to Unholy Passion Festival in Cologne.
Cool.
Last that's always fun to hang out. I mean, I there might be some performing going on. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but as far as like Tombs doing a full on European tour, maybe I don't know. We'll see. Maybe next year because our new album probably won't be out this year. It'll be out in 2025. So that's kind of the deal.
Sure.
But maybe we can. I would love to share the stage, man. That'd be great. Do some dates together, that sort of thing. It'd be awesome.
Well, you just took the words out of my mouth. I was just gonna say it'd be cool if we got the opportunity to team up, man. Would be a cool, fucking
Absolutely.
powerful combination for sure.
Might be too much for some people, but yeah, I think that'd be great.
Well, if it's not too much, then it's not worth it.
Yeah,
That's why
no,
we
yeah,
do this.
definitely. Absolutely. You know.
Fuck yeah,
But
man. Absolutely.
so the video, the Azrael video, that when that came out, I was a big fan. It's great. Um, so what was the production behind that? What was the story with the production of that video?
Well, it started with an idea that I had in my head, actually just around the time we were recording the album. So again, it's a for now almost 5 year old idea that I've had in my head. And one crazy thing about it is if you listen to the song during that flagellation scene in the middle, you actually hear chains on the actual studio riff. And that's because I already knew back then what I wanted to do with the video that we would eventually record for it sometime later. So it was a very fucking cool project as a whole. I mean, I would have been happy with it if it only had, I don't know, 100 views or whatever, but it just seems to have really obviously excelled on that side of things, which is really, really nice to have that. But I was just happy with it as an art piece. So we basically met up with our director and producer Alex DeMoller. We met up with him. Well, I met up with him in London, January 2022, and I had a lot of ideas. So him and we spent a solid 2 or 3 days just going over ideas. And he's obviously since then become a very good friend of mine anyway, and is a fucking solid guy. He plays guitars in Scythian and Craven Idol, for those who don't know. Great fucking bands also. But yeah, Alex and we just started going through these ideas. I said to him what I wanted to do. I told him I wanted to create fucking revolt in the Middle East, and he totally took that on board because he's very familiar with Iranian culture in particular, which has kind of like helped us click a little bit more with him having such a good understanding of where I come from. And then yeah, I think we did the 2 3 days of ideas and sketches. We did a good couple of Zoom meetings with like the whole production crew and everything, just going through everything. And then the first day of shooting was in Suffolk, England, down at this farm by this family who just kindly gave it to us. And all of the band shots that you see that are indoors were shot there. And it was a fucking immense vibe, man. Like, I think back at that and I just go straight back to being in that place. Like, if you felt the energy in that room when we had the whole setup and the heads and the candles and the fire and the smoke, like some of it I almost feel like isn't even captured on the video because the fucking vibe of that place was insane. Them intro shots when I'm playing the Saz. That is me, by the way, for anyone thinking. That's me playing the intro. Um, the whole atmosphere of that room was so fucking dense, but there was something so powerful, so good about it. I will never forget that experience. And yeah, so we did that over like a couple of days. The main shoot was just in one day, but we had I think we had 8 crew members for that one, and then we did the other one a month later in Sheffield with the flagellation scenes and the vocal shots that we did, and that was also Very tiring, but very, very cool experience. You know, everyone left with their backs in fucking pieces and like skin hanging off from doing those chain shots. Because we did that for, I believe we were doing it for a good 3 or 4 hours. Those chain flagellation shots, we were beating ourselves. We were really doing it, and there was actual blood and everything just from beating ourselves for so long. And yeah, listen, man, I couldn't be more proud of how it fucking turned out. It was a awesome, awesome project, really.
Yeah, I was gonna comment on that. I mean, you, look like you guys are going pretty hard, so I was like, respect. You know what I mean? That was, you know, going the walking the walk. You know what I mean? I thought that was really cool.
Absolutely. One of our friends who came and did this, Connor, he's the vocalist in my other band, Weird Stuff. He's a fucking maniac. He was like almost going extra hard as if he was trying to prove himself something. He was like almost like David Goggins zing the shit. You know, it was like at the end of it, he turned around and his old back looked like a fucking, you know, it looked like a tray of pate with like a little sprays of blood in the middle somewhere. It was fucking awesome, you know. And he said he had to, when he had to get the train to go back home afterwards, he couldn't lean back. So yeah, there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, literally, that went into making the Azrael video happen. So, what can I say? I'm happy with how it turned out, but I guess even happier that it's had the response that it's had. So fuck yeah.
Yeah. I imagine the aftermath is really when you start feeling things. You know, it's like when you're all like in the middle of it, when you're, you know, you got the adrenaline going and you don't feel you don't feel the pain of that sort of extremity and probably until hours later, you know, or even the next day when you wake up, you realize like when all that adrenaline runs out of your system, how much actual pain you're probably in, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. For me, I almost don't feel it. You know, I keep focusing on everyone else because I didn't feel anything. For me, it didn't hurt because it's my vision. I know exactly what I'm doing. You know, so that's the reason why I keep talking about everyone else being injured or hurt. And for me, it was normal. I knew exactly what I was doing and I enjoyed every single second of it. And you know, the reward is, you know, it's one of them things. Even if I did hurt afterwards, I don't think I felt it just because of how happy I was that that vision that I had in mind got executed. And you know, another thing I got to tell you as well, which makes that whole thing even further symbolic, is that when we got the release date for it, we I didn't know when that release date was as far as its position in Islamic religions, should we say. In an Islamic context, I didn't connect the dots until after the video came out. But basically, I mean, this is fucking mind blowing to me. You can't make this shit up, man. What happened was, so the thing that we're doing, that flagellation, that's what we were doing was essentially an imitation, but also slash mockery of what the Muslims do, especially the Shiites. You know, they do that chain flagellation for Imam Hussein, who's Muhammad's third descendant, you know, and Ali's youngest son. Because he was he was starved and basically killed in the desert, you know, and Yazid's army, apparently it was 10,000 of them versus 72 of Imam Hussein's army. I don't know, it's kind of fucking, it's one of them stories. It's a story, you know,
Yeah.
like maybe
So
it happened, maybe it didn't, who knows. But Muslims to this day still mourn this, and they mourn this fucking hard, and they keep beating themselves up. So we wanted to imitate that. Now, the thing that happened, the time when Muslims do this is a particular month of the year called, they call it the period of Muharram. They call it the period of Taswa and Ashura. That's what it is, you know, because it coincides with the time when Imam Hussein was fucked up in the desert. And unbeknownst to me until just after the video came out, we released that fucking video on, I believe, the second day of that month, right? How do you fucking explain that?
yeah, I mean it's interesting when things line up sometimes, you know, and I always kind of trip out on that when you're these things are operating on separate timelines, but then they intersect as if there was an intention behind all that. And maybe there was, maybe deep down in some
Mm.
subconscious level, like on some deep level, all this stuff was working towards the same end, you know? And I believe in that too. Like I believe that like intentions sometimes guide you through life, you know? And yeah, it's interesting, you know. And it's almost it's
It's
like this inversion of that ritual is what you guys did basically.
So earlier when I said that, oh yeah, we had to wait 4 years for the album to come out, but somehow I feel like it came out at the right time. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. You know, and that's the thing, man. It's like over the I don't know, maybe in the last like 8 or 9 years of my life, I stopped trying to force things, you know, because I used to in my younger years, I'd be like right up on top of things all the time, you know, pushing, 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 you know, my own to my detriment sometimes, you know. And now in the last like 5 or 6 years, I work hard, you know, I put a lot of intention in things, but I also know that sometimes when there's too much resistance to stuff, maybe you have to let it go and take its own course through things sometimes. And that's kind of like maybe this 4 year period, like you were saying, you know, the intention was there, it was cast out into the universe, and then the right thing happened at the right time, you know, and I believe in that for sure.
Yeah, I believe in that wholeheartedly. And that's really interesting what you're saying about pushing something endlessly. And because the thing that happens, a consequence of constantly pushing something in life and being so emotionally attached to it is the fact that you begin to ignore signs that the world and the life throw at you. You know what I mean? And those signs are exactly the things that if you really want to stay true to your path, those are the signs you got to pay attention to. And and you just got to go with your gut feeling, not with what you think in your head is right. It's almost like a physical sensation. You know if something is right in your heart, or if it isn't. And I have to say, I felt the same with Trivex. I mean, like that, the band had been my identity for so many years, and this was all throughout the periods that no one had even heard of us. I'm like, yes, we're doing this, we're gonna go on tour, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And then eventually, at some point, I think I know in 2020 when the lockdowns happened, I was like, well, I guess maybe this is not going to be my identity forever. So maybe I've kind of got to actually find my real identity, not outside of it, but the full picture rather than just looking at one aspect of it. So, yeah, there's a lot to that, and yeah, life is all about flowing and paying attention and being intuitive and always moving and being being moldable. And then the if you're too stiff, it'll just kick your ass, which I've had plenty of that, let me tell you.
So this new path that you're exploring right now, you know, it's career path, but also I feel like it definitely connects with your physical and emotional changes that have gone on in your life that we talked about this a lot on your first you know appearance on this podcast. And the physical transformation and obviously the connection of that with your mental state. And now I don't know all the details of what you're trying to do right now as far as like training and so I want to talk about that, like how that stuff is like talking about extensions. How did that all come about?
Well, I mean, if you really want to go back, we'd be looking at a time in back in 2016, 17. I think February 2017. I can't remember if it was maybe the 19th where I had myself weighed, but I'm good with dates. Everyone knows that. When I had myself weighed, I was something around, I think, 119 stone, which is, I think that's, sorry, 119 kilos, which is just over 260 pounds for the
Something
American
like that.
listeners.
Yeah. I was trying to do
Yeah,
the quick
yeah,
calculation, but something like that.
that's right. Yeah, and yeah, man, it was a shitty time. It was a shitty life. I hated everything. My life was a mess. I had no control over it. and I had to really, really do a lot of work to dig myself out of that. But it all started with making the decision to do so, because I found myself in this really position of black and white. Like a lot of times in life, we just bullshit ourselves. We're like, yeah, but there's this and then there's that. And then you think that there's too many options. And sometimes it helps to just strip everything down. And for me, the strip down was to say, okay, I'm either going to kill myself now or I'm going to fix everything. And I went with the latter, even though at the time it felt completely hopeless. I just knew. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna fucking fix this shit. And I did. I did. I kept. I started going to the gym. Didn't have any guidance, and I kept pushing and pushing and pushing. I didn't know what I was doing. First of all, for like a first year and a half, I had no fucking idea what I was doing. And if I had someone there to help me, like I am now doing for other people, I probably would have. I probably would have progress faster. But nevertheless, I still put in the work, kept showing up for myself, and it got to the point where people around me were saying that, oh, you should stop doing this because it's like you're addicted. You're like addicted to heroin or something. That's potentially what an ex-partner at the time might have said. And as soon as I heard that, I realized that, well, that person no longer belonged in my life. Again, that took a bit of time of its own, and it was a difficult, very difficult thing, obviously. But yeah, I just got to the point where I realized that I have a point, I have a path, I have a passion. I'm lucky enough just to be alive. I'm lucky enough just to have been able to get out of Iran to actually do all these stuff that I always wanted to do, all these dreams and everything that I had. And all things considered, I'm still fairly at a good age to still be doing these things and still give my all and my best. So what the fuck am I doing waiting around and letting other people dictate my life? So I just said, fuck it, let's just keep going. And I kept pushing until, well, just earlier, around July last year, I actually did prep for this photo shoot, which I did with my good friend Miley. And during that prep, I was 76 kilos, which is, I think, how much is that in pounds? I think that's about what, 80 pounds lighter than where I was originally.
Yeah, that's like a substantial amount of weight to lose, man. Over how many years did it take you to lose that? That's
I mean,
that's like
to be honest with you, as far as, I mean, the weight itself, I probably already lost the majority of it within 2, 3 years. But then the difficult part is packing on muscle and then
yeah,
losing more weight. Packing muscle, then losing more fat. Packing muscle, losing more fat. That's the tough part. So I've got pictures where I am the same weight as I am now, but I look way bigger than those pictures now than I did back then. Does that make sense?
yeah, body composition, definitely.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the key right there. Good weight versus bad, useless weight.
Yeah, there's that. So this is not to get obsessed with weights and things like that as well. I always tell my clients, I say, listen, don't get too obsessed with the weight. It's a good indicator, but the thing you really want to be looking at is A, how you look, and B, or rather, even more importantly, how you feel, right? And everyone, I mean, fucking touch wood, so far my clients have fucking smashed it. I mean, it's been so rewarding for me to go through that whole trial by fire, if you will, and on the other side of it, actually see the fact that I can actually help other people do the same. Like, it almost makes me emotional. It's a fucking it's a really, really cool, rewarding thing, and I'm so driven to help people as best as I can. And I want to make that my life. I am making that my life. Obviously, Trivax and obviously Iblis manifestations, they have very big places in my heart, in my life, and certainly my time. But other than that, it's just making better human beings, making people understand that they can be better versions of themselves. And that's really the thing I'm focused on right now. And so far so good. And I'm not doing it just to have a career. I'm doing it because it's the thing I really enjoy doing. And yeah, I can't wait to do more of it. And I can't wait to start revealing some results to people as well, because I've got some really good fucking ones. So I'm excited. I'm excited to reveal some of those. But so far, it's just my own that people can look at. But listen, at the end of the day, if you want to make positive changes and shifts in your life, the trigger's in your own hand, and that's really all it is. No one else is gonna hold your hand and walk you through it. You have to put in the effort yourself, and especially as a man, it's your responsibility to do it. And it's hard. It's not easy. It fucking sucks sometimes, but at the end, it's gonna be worthwhile.
Yeah, that connection between mind and physical is it seems to be being lost by people, and it's like,
Yeah.
my whole life I've been connected to the physical world, my own physicality and earlier in my life doing, wrestling and then martial arts and everything. So I understood like how my brain works better when I'm in good condition, and how if my cardio is good, I feel strong. I think better, I think more clearly, and that is like an indicator. My mood is an indicator of how good physical condition I'm in. You know what I mean? And like
Mm.
not, I can get obsessive, of course, but I mean, there's like a balance between those two things, which, I work a desk job, I'm in the city all the time on the subway, and people just you can see it on the way that in their posture that there's an
Yes.
imbalance. You know what I mean? That they're not moving their bodies enough, that they're spending too much time focusing on things, and that anxiety is building up, and aside from looking good and, whatever, being able to take your shirt off at the beach and everything, just the moving your body has such a profound positive impact on just the way your mind works too, you know.
Absolutely, man. There's one
At
thing
least
I love doing is I like to dance, right? I know it's the least metal thing anyone's ever heard, but I'm a Persian. First of all, it runs in my fucking blood to move.
oh yeah, I mean,
And
I'm part Italian, so I'm a Guido, so I
there you
have
go. Right on. Right
yeah,
on. That's it. That probably explains why we get along so well, by the way.
that's right.
Italian people, and I don't know what it is. It's just I've always had a very good bond with Italians. But I think that we're kind of similar, maybe with Persians. There's a lot more. There's a lot of passion is the word I can use. Is that there's passion. There's fucking and and yeah, to me it's life is movement. This thing, this vessel that you got to respect it. But you respect it by serving the purpose that it has, which is to move, which is to thrive, which is to sometimes go through a little bit of struggle. Like everything atrophies if you don't use it, and that's not just your body, but it's your mind as well, and the two are intertwined, the two are connected. So the lesser you use your body, the lesser your mind is connected to your body, and that's not a good thing. We in the modern world always observe ourselves as if we are just avatars, which, by the way, scares the fuck out of me. And now, what do I mean by that? You already pointed at this and you put it down very well, saying that nowadays people aren't really connected with their bodies anymore. And that's true because, when you're always sat on a desk and it's only your mind that you're using and not your body, there's a huge imbalance there. And when your mind observes things, this is my theory anyway, is that when your mind is going through things, emotions get created and energy somehow, I don't know, transfers within you. But then if your body's not moving, those emotions get trapped, and somehow that's like a disease or a poison that just weighs us down. And I noticed this in myself. If I have days where, I mean, ironically enough, part of my job as a fitness coach is the fact that because I work with clients all over the world, I've got clients in America, Australia, Germany, because I've got people everywhere. Part of my job is to just sit down and look at a screen and communicate to them or speak to them over the phone and do all these things, which is ironically actually quite sedentary on my part. So even I feel that, if I've been sat down for too long, I start thinking like, oh shit, I feel like crap, and then all it takes, I was like that today with work. I had a really fucking, tough time because I still work besides all of this as well. And all I had to do was just go to the gym, stick on a couple of plates, and do a few 5 reps of bench press, and it's like, there we go, back to normal now. you know? And that's how it is. I'm sure you probably feel that even more with jujitsu, because that's such a high risk, high reward kind of a situation that you have to be so alert. You just forget about everything else, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I recently hurt my knee a few weeks ago. So I've been, I haven't really been
Damn.
training. So, just in the last like few days, I've been able to like, feel mobile again, which is good, because I was like, through the holidays, like I couldn't straighten my leg out, and I had all this, you know, nothing, not a debilitating injury, but I was set back enough where the anxiety and like wasn't sleeping well, and you can feel that negative energy collecting in your body, But now
Don't I
I
know it,
start.
man?
Oh yeah. So I mean, just a couple days ago I started. I was able to like do some swings, some kettlebell swings, push-ups, and I'm out moving my body. And I'll probably go back to training next week, which is good. But yeah, that's like a real, like not making it down to the gym, and besides from the physical activity of it, the connection with the guys I train with, it's like, you know,
Hmm.
the greatest thing in the world because,
The
you know,
camaraderie.
well, and also how different everyone is too. Like, without, well, it's for me, it's Muay Thai, but like, I don't really train jujitsu anymore, but like the Muay Thai community that I'm part of is like guys I would never be friends with unless for that, I mean, we have the band music. That's like probably my number one passion, really. You know what I mean? And that's a certain type of person, you know what I mean? The people we're all into the same things. We dress alike, we like the same types of stuff, same movies and everything. But then you go down to the gym and you got guys from all different cultures, different neighborhoods, different, points of view, different political leanings, and it's like you all get along because it's like you all have that one common thing, and it's like the most beautiful, all age groups, all the most beautiful thing in the world to go out there and be friends with people that you have on the surface not a whole lot in common with. But once you get to know them, you realize that everyone kind of thinks the same way eventually. It's like the things that are important, in life are common. You want to be happy. You want to be your loved ones to do well. You want your friends to do well. You want to be part of something. Like that's all one of the things that connects everybody. Even if some guy likes horrible music or whatever, and like, whatever his thing is cool. You learn how to like adapt to everyone's unique perspectives, and that's unfortunately, at least in the United States, that's not the way most people seem to go about their lives. They want to be segmented and compartmentalized and keep everyone separated and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy in the US, man. I mean, there's such a divide. It's a little bit like that here in the UK as well, like because I could go into the parties and how everyone identifies by each different party, and then everyone's like, anyone who's a Tory is a cunt or whatever. And then it's like,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I listen, I get it, but at the same time, you can't just wholesale buy ideologies, like for me, I'm always have made a clear distinction, especially in the last few years, that I've become more educated on politics in particular, because before that I was always just like, yeah, destroy the fucking system, kill everyone, fuck him. That was,
Yeah, totally.
that was me for so many years. So when someone asked me, are you left wing or right wing, I just tell them fuck off. Obviously, as I've got more mature, I've become more educated on the subject of politics, but even then I always make a distinction between okay, I may be I don't know, I may be a left-wing person, but I don't necessarily support left-wing policies. Or I might be a right-wing person, but I don't necessarily support right-wing policies. There's a difference there. Just I'm not going to weigh my own values as a person based on predisposed fucking template wholesale bullshit that's out there. I can think for myself, thank you. and there will be things that I'll agree with on one side, and there'll be same things that, there'll be stuff that I'll also disagree with the same side. And the same applies to both. And yes, it might be more lenient towards one side than the other. But nevertheless, I am not going to consider the enemy of my enemy my friend, and vice versa. So, and I think that's a really important thing that we all need to kind of keep an eye out for, and rather than look at each other as these objects of red or blue, instead actually look at each other as, yeah, that's a human being. Yes, some people are so far gone. Some people, when take themselves so far down the path of segregation, they become, completely intolerable. I feel that way about a lot of people, but then you don't have to associate with them anymore. But yeah, it's a crazy fucking thing. I think when it concerns politics, the more I'm educating myself on it, because sometimes as well, you don't have the answer. So the thing that fucking throws me off is like some issue happens and then everyone is expected to have an expert opinion. Where it's like, well, hang on a minute. Maybe you don't know enough about that. Maybe you don't have the education to know about that. Maybe you don't know the past history of that to have an opinion on it. And everyone goes on social media and starts fucking posting like however many flags and, like fucking watermelon emojis when they don't actually know what's really going on. And that's not to take, again, by criticizing that, I'm not taking a side. I'm simply saying, just calm your titties and think a little bit first. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, number one, the first step is to just figure out how the government actually works, which is like a big obstacle. That was a few years
Exactly.
ago. That was how most people don't even understand how people get elected in this country. The electoral college and how districts are gerrymandered and, what that,
Right.
popular vote versus the electoral. I mean, they make it so esoteric and arcane in this country how these systems work, and no one really understands anything. On the average person doesn't understand how elections work, and that's part of the problem. And they just want to look at the broad strokes and be emotional about things, and that's the thing. You got to pull emotion out of it and just like look at the actual facts, and that's not the world we live in right now. That, at least over here, everything's heightened and very emotional, and people feel like they're victims. And this group feels like they haven't been acknowledged the right way, and it's just crazy. But it's with all that said, I still like living in the United States. I still consider the United States my home. My family were immigrants, and they came here, and they found they made a good life here, and I still believe in those things, and that's something that, I hold that dear in my heart, that you can have opportunity here, at least at this right now on this day, that still exists, and I hope that continues to exist in this country.
I totally
That's all
respect that, man.
yeah, that's all I got to say about it. I don't want to wave an American flag or anything like that, but like that's, I've my family came over here, from overseas, from Europe, from Italy, from my father's side of the family came from Ireland and the UK, and they were able to make a good life for themselves here. And I really believe that that's something that I like to see continue in this country.
Well, I totally, first of all, respect that. I appreciate that. I have more respect for people who feel that way about their own country than those who don't. You know,
Yeah.
it's just a fact of the matter. Because I think you can be critical, like you should be critical of your government too. You should be critical of, especially foreign policies and things like that. But you know, you can also simultaneously be proud of where you come from, where you live. And I think that one thing that I totally appreciate and respect about America, and it's fucking so bizarre to me that I've never actually been there, because I feel like I relate to Americans more than I relate to anyone else, pretty much. And I'm sure a lot of my British friends might be upset to hear this, or I'm sure a lot of my Scandinavian friends might be upset, but I relate most to Americans. I'm going to tell you why that is, because a lot of times, whenever I've met American people, like decent people. Like I remember one time I met this mother and daughter on a train, and what was their name? Nancy and Laura, and they were from Nashville, Tennessee, right? And I spent a good 2 hours, 2.5 hours talking to them, and I was trying to pick their brains because I'm generally fascinated with the United States anyway. But I was just talking to them for that period of time, and the thing that I got from them, I mean, first of all, they were lovely ladies. I really enjoyed speaking to them, and very intelligent, both of them. And Nancy was a school teacher, so I was very intrigued to hear her perspective on things. And the thing that I always get from American people when I interact with them is the fact that you guys like success. Now, what do I mean by that? When you are in a place like, let's say, Britain, and I'm sure most British people would agree with this, every British person would agree with what I'm about to say, is that over here, if you start to get too big, or if you start to get ambitious, all they do is they bring you down because they're like, oh no, you shouldn't be doing that. This is just like, who do you think you are? And there's this like sarcastic, but also kind of really passive aggressive fucking thing to try and bring you down, and they'll actually take measures to bring you down as well. They'll bitch to themselves. They say, oh, have you seen him? He's doing that. Fuck that guy. They try and bring you down. Long story short, they just try and bring you down because they're like, well, how dare you try and progress past this? And the part of this is because they're always very comfortable. I mean, first and foremost is the fact that British people are not very compatible with the idea of change. Okay, you try and change their diet, it destroys them mentally. Like, you try to add some more spices to their food, they'll lose their fucking mind. By the way, Persian food is not spicy for anyone listening to this. In case you're uncultured enough to think it is, it's not. And it tastes better than Indian food. But so the thing that happens is, with Americans. Now, listen, there's no one's perfect, but what I love about American people, at least the ones who I've met that I've really conversed and got to know, obviously yourself included there, I think that there's this when you're trying to be successful, when you're trying to go for it, there's this spirit of fuck yeah, go for it. Let's see how far you can go. Good for you. And I've never seen that anywhere else. And I absolutely adore that about Americans. And I adore that about your country. It's a very, very lovely part of the culture there. I know it's not applicable to everyone, but it's a spirit that resonates with me a lot and is perhaps responsible for a lot of the success of the country as well. It's a real shame that the foreign policies in the last 20 years has been such a fucking shit show. Because I really think, like, there's a part of me that's like, oh man, it's so good, it's so close to being good, it could be so much better. That I don't know why. As an Iranian guy who used to purposely avoid stepping on the American flag, which was forced upon us in school to purposely disrespect the USA, I like that about the country, and it bothers me that it's in the situation that it is now. Uh, I don't know if that's some kind of weird patriotism coming through for a country I've never visited, for a country that that might be responsible for a lot of things, but I don't know. I don't know. It's a very weird one for me. I hope it gets better somehow. I don't know.
I mean, there's definitely a duality in the United States about that, especially the things that you were talking about. I mean, this like passion for success. There's like it's good and bad, just like everything else. It's like in an extreme, it means you like steamroll over people and that sort of stuff. But it also,
Yeah.
I consider myself someone who I want to be successful. I like money. I like making money. I like having comfortable things. I do pretty well, professionally. So it's that's all good things, but there's also the trappings of that, which a lot of these like John Wayne motherfuckers that represent the United States in Europe sometimes I think like the ugly American, it's a lifestyle thing more than an actual measure of where they are in the success of their lives. You know what I mean? There's like this loud guns, this whole thing, big trucks, stuff like that, which I know that Europeans perceive Americans typically in that light. They're always talking about how good they are, like how great it is. I got these guns, everyone's got pistols, that kind of thing. And that's
Yeah.
like the sort of the dark side, I guess, of that pioneer spirit, which I think is what a lot of people in this country might rest their hats on that. Yeah, the westward expansion, we conquered North America, that sort of thing. And that's good and bad, and like I said, in measure in you have to be measured about everything you do, man. That's how I see it. It's like, yeah, there's good, there's bad. It's up to you to measure how much of these things you want to apply to yourself and be aware of how that like interacts with people and the environment around you, and that's kind of like my perspective on a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I think that's the best way to look at it as well, is to have a realistic, balanced viewpoint. I'm mainly just picking on the positive things, like, yeah, I
No,
could
definitely.
also criticize a lot of things
Sure.
about it as well, but I'm focused on what's actually positive about it and what I like about the country. And you know what? To perhaps end on a controversial note as well, I actually love the idea of the Second Amendment. I think
Sure.
that's a beautiful thing, and the idea behind that as well that people got to remember is that it's not just about being edgy and having a fucking gun. No, it's to actually be able to defend yourself against tyranny, which is essentially your own government. So when you have power, your government can turn against you. So if they all of a sudden decide start to make tyrannical decisions and then start shifting the stock market to their own interest, or they start closing down your business because of a boogeyman virus or whatever that's happening, then then at least you have the right to defend yourself and you can show up at their office with arms. And that's the thing that they're scared of, by the way. If the government in America, knowing how corrupt they are, if the right to bear arms wasn't a thing, they would be doing a lot worse things. That's for sure. I can
I mean,
guarantee.
I'm a fan of it too. I mean, I shoot. I don't own a gun, but I've trained in South Jersey. I mean, I look at it as like the thing is when I decided I wanted to learn about guns and pistols, I learned about it. You know what I mean? I learned how to
Yeah.
shoot. I learned about the weapons. I learned about the different aspects of it. It's like I looked at it as like a martial art. But I, the responsible ownership of guns is and it comes down to that and your conduct. It's like if you drive a car and you like kill a bunch of people in your car, they take your license away from you. You know what I mean? Like I don't believe in
Exactly.
this like carte blanche, like everyone could just be armed all the time. I think that is a little bit irresponsible. You know what I mean? From a lot of people are whining and complaining about how the government's regulating firearms and all this stuff, and like, yeah, I think it should be regulated. I think you should have a background check to make sure you're not going to go out and kill a bunch of people,
Oh
and
yeah,
that's
exactly. Of course.
yeah,
Yeah. I think where I come from is listen, like, of course that would be a good thing. The way I look at it is I would much prefer it if guns just did not exist, right?
me too.
Like as if
Yeah,
there was no guns left on the planet, because to me it's a very weird way of cheating nature. It's a weird way of cheating battle. It's not something that I like. I wish, like, if people, especially teenagers, had the opportunity to do hand in hand combat to resolve their problems rather than listen to some bullshit rap music and then go fucking stab each other or shoot each other. There would be a lot less deaths, first of all, but there would also be a lot more personal growth, because a lot of times as men, once you take that aggression out, you're good. You go out and fucking drink afterwards, and you get over it. But it's when you give people these ways of cheating nature, which is what guns are. It's what nuclear bombs are.
sure.
It's that's when shit gets fucking weird. But as long as it exists, then it's something that everyone should have access to. Otherwise, you are simply just vulnerable, And I feel that way in the UK, especially with the notoriety of Trivax going up. And I know that the Muslim community is not particularly extremely pleased with what we've done, which to me is a fucking victory first and foremost. But I will say that, that's something that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. Now you could say, well, if you were a place where everyone had access to it, then blah blah blah, wouldn't that be more dangerous? No, I don't think so. And yeah, it's a tricky subject, and you know what? On top of it as well, speaking of Islamic places, another thing that I want to leave this podcast with, and for people to think about, if you want to think strategically, I don't know anyone's been following what's been happening in Iran since September 2022, but if the Iranian people had something like the right to bear arms, that government would have been gone within the first month of those riots. That's all I'm saying.
That's definitely something to think about. And as we were talking about this, and you're bringing up your points, I actually was thinking about that for sure. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Well, there you go. Exactly. I mean, there's so many examples of it throughout history. Like you need to understand how power works. You don't just get given rewards by being a good citizen or a good person. All you get is your powers taken away by people who are just the same as you at the end of the day. So you got to understand how the power dynamic works between a citizen and the government. And I honestly think the lesser government you got, the fucking better. But here we are. What do I know? I'm a black metal musician, right?
Shayan, as usual, it was a pleasure. And I thank you for carving out some time to talk to me. And hopefully in 2024, we all of us get to see each other. That would be great, right?
That would be amazing, man. I mean, 2023 is gone already, but 2024 would be perfect if we had the chance to do that, man. But no, listen, on a serious note, thank you so much, brother, for having me on. It's been a blast to have the chat, and more importantly, just to have an excuse to catch up. Really, it's been fun, man.
Absolutely, man. We should do this more often, bro. All right, man.
I think so too. Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
I'll take care. Bye-bye.